So in this last basics of Excel video, what we're going to do is kind of just talk about a few more features and functions that Excel has for us to use. Again, very basic. We already talked a lot about different formatting techniques with font sizes and bolding, making sure that we use the appropriate formatting for currency versus just text or other sort of numeric formats. We've talked about using totals, so using the summation formula, how to add and delete different columns. And so we're just going to kind of continue with that discussion with a few more features. One thing that I actually use very frequently, both in practice as an accountant, but also in teaching, is review comments. So there may be an important piece of information that you want to include, so that whoever's using your table of data just has that additional piece of information, but it's not necessarily something that's in the data, right? It's not like numeric or anything like that. It's just an additional comment that you want to provide to them as they're reviewing it. What we can use is something called review comments. So up in the menu, you can see that we're normally on the home menu when we've done a lot of the different functions so far, but there's a review menu. And so if you tap on that review menu, you can see that it gives you the option to add what are called comments. So again, essentially, this is something that you want to be able to communicate to whoever's going to be using this table, or to remind yourself of something, to be honest. But you don't necessarily want it sort of in the cells. You don't want it necessarily in the table itself. And so an example that we're going to do here is for customer receivables. If we look at customer number 9 in row 11, they owe $350, and all $350 of what they owe is overdue by 60 days, meaning we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for them to pay us. It's past due by 60 days. And so the comment that we want to make for customer number 9 to whoever's going to be reviewing this Excel spreadsheet is to tell them we should not sell to customer number 9 until they pay us the amount that they owe. So that's the additional comment that we want to add in our table of data. So I tapped on cell A11 where customer number 9 is, and I'm going to tap on comment in the top there, and you see what happens is there is a menu that populates on the right hand side, and the cursor is blinking, meaning Excel is giving you the opportunity to sort of type in there what exactly you want the comment to be. So we're going to write do not sell to customer until full amount is paid. So that's the comment that we want to leave in our Excel spreadsheet for whoever, again, is going to be reviewing this later on. And to save it, you tap on that little green arrow in the right-hand side there. So if I tap on that, you'll see that now it appears as a comment. And if I close out of that little comment menu by tapping on this X with the circle around it, and then I tap on just any cell other than customer number 9, you can see that on cell A11 for customer number 9, there's sort of a little indication that there's a comment presented there. There's that little reddish purple sort of detail in the top corner, and that's telling the user of this table of data, of information, that there's a comment here, there's something extra. And so if they tap on, or we tap on cell A11, customer number 9, you see that dialog box is pre-populated. When I tap on that, over in the right hand side is where my comment will again appear. So you don't have to have the comments open all the time, but you can see, because it's indicated by that little purple or red shape in the right column of the right top corner of the cell, that there is something going on with this cell. There's an additional comment that needs to be taken into consideration when viewing this table of data. So I'm going to close out of the comments, and then the next sort of feature of Excel we're gonna look through and give an example of is filtering. So right now, our customer receivable table has been put just in order of customer. So 1 through 11, everything that they owe, the amount that's current, the amount that's overdue. But what if we wanted to maybe filter this so that we can see who owes us the most amount, or maybe who has the most overdue amount? It might not be, especially if you have a large set of data, it's not easy to be able to determine that. So one very simple function that we can use is a filter function. The first thing we want to do, though, is is we want to separate our totals row from the rest of our data table. So if I tap on row 14, you can see that it again populates a menu, and what I want to do is insert. So I'm going to tap insert, and what that do is creates a row between the initial set of data and then the totals that we created in a previous Excel lecture. This makes it so that those totals don't get sort of mixed in when we go and start to filter this data in different ways. So we separate that totals column, and then the next step to this is to identify which columns do we want to be able to filter by. And again, this is a very small set of data. We only have 5 columns that we've included so far. So, we can just highlight everything, but imagine if there was, maybe dozens of columns of data. We may only want to be able to filter with, just a certain number of them. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to identify all 5 of these columns that we want to be able to filter by. The way that we do that is to tap on cell A2, and you can see that then it becomes highlighted. And what I'm going to do is tap on the little green circle in the bottom right hand corner of the cell, and I'm going to drag it over all of the column headings. So now basically what I'm telling Excel is I want to be able to filter all of these column headings. I've highlighted all of them. Then in order to actually filter, I'm going to tap on the data menu. So in the top set of menus, I'm going to tap on data, and then you can see there's a little funnel icon with filter next to it. And I'm going to tap on that and tap on show filter buttons. You can see now what's happened to every column heading is that there is a drop down menu. So now Excel acknowledges that we want to be able to sort of view this data in a few different ways, and so they've created drop down menus for each of the column headings. So let's say that we want to be able to identify the customers by how much they owe us. So we want to list from largest to smallest the total receivable. So column B is what I'm going to filter here. If I tap on cell B2, the little drop down menu that's on cell B2, you can see that it asks sort of how do we want to filter. More often, and again with these basics, we're just going to go either smallest to largest or largest to smallest, but there are different ways that Excel will allow you to create a unique filter of your own. Say you only want to see items that are between certain dollar thresholds, or say you only want to see customers that have a specific type of balance overdue. You can create custom filters, but for now we're just going to do these very simple ones. And for this one, this example, we want to go largest to smallest. So I'm going to tap on largest to smallest, and you can see what happens. The data is immediately changed to where now we're not listing from customers 1 through 11. We're listing by total receivable. So customer number 7 has the highest total receivable balance of $870, and customer number 4 has the lowest receivable balance of $125. One other thing to notice is that the totals in row 15, because we separated them from the table initially, those totals go unchanged. So the formulas that are used in those totals do not get affected or manipulated when we filter, when we've done that separation, when we've created a row, a blank row between the data set and the totals row. So that's a way that we can filter the data in a few different ways so that we can, again, it kind of depends on what type of decision are you trying to make. Are you trying to decide on how past overdue they are? Are you trying to make a decision on, if you want to sell to new customers? All of that kind of stuff is how you can decide how you want to filter the data. I'm going to go ahead and filter back by customer number. So if I tap on the little drop down box on customer number, I just want to go smallest to largest, and then it'll go back to listing it by customer numbers 1 through 11. So that's the filter function. Again, you can find that function under the data menu. There's that little funnel that has filter next to it. That's the function that we use to sort of create these different filters that we can manipulate our data. Okay, the last thing that we want to do is use Excel. So far, the only formula that we've used Excel is just to add a bunch of stuff up. So we use that summation formula. If I tap on my home menu, we use that summation formula in the top right-hand corner of our menu here to basically create totals for each of the columns that we had our receivable balances in. But we can use Excel to do all kinds of different formulas. And in fact, there's a formula menu that's provided in Excel. If I tap on that formula menu, you can see that there are a bunch of different categories of formulas that Excel already has sort of embedded in it. And we can use these different menus to kind of find what we need. For our purposes in these lectures, we are keeping it very, very basic and simple. So all we're doing in both these lectures and in the introductory accounting class, all we're doing is using basic arithmetic. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And so like I said, what we've done so far is just added a whole bunch of stuff up. What I want to do now is do a different type of formula where we're going to figure out what percentage of each customer's receivable balance is current. So we want to know what percentage of, for customer number 1, how much of the $250 is current. We can see that it's $200, but we want to view that in a percentage form. So what I'm going to do in column F is I'm going to create a new heading, and it's going to be percentage current. And the first thing I'm going to do is just format that heading in the same way that I have the other headings. So I'm going to make it under my home menu, I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to use the little box that looks like a grid. That menu allows me to add a bottom border. So I'm going to do that. And now it's formatted in the same way. Before, again, the second thing I'm going to do before I actually put the formula in is I'm going to make sure that this customer receivables heading now carries over to column F. So the way that I do that is by taking, tapping on the customer receivables heading, and again, I'm going to drag it using that little green dot in the bottom right corner. I'm going to drag it over to column F as well. So now I'm telling Excel I basically want this heading to be over the entirety of the table of data now that I'm adding this new column over on the right. You'll see the icon that's already highlighted in our home menu is the little box that has the line with arrows pointing in either direction. And if I double tap on that, what happens is now my heading goes over that new column. So again, all I needed to do was highlight the additional column that the heading should go over, and then double tap on that little box icon that has the arrow pointing in either direction. And that extended my my heading over to the top of the columns. Okay. So now let's talk about the formula. So the formula that I want to use is going to be a division formula, and essentially I just want to take the current amount in column C and I want to divide it by the total amount in column B. So the way that we can do that, the way that Excel recognizes that you're putting a formula in is to say equals. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put equals in my cell. So I am in cell F3. I hit equals on my keyboard, and then I'm going to tap on the current amount. So I'm saying I want Excel to take that current amount, and then on my keyboard, I'm going to use the backslash. That's what Excel recognizes as the symbol for division. So I'm taking the current amount in cell C3, and I'm dividing it by the total amount in cell B3. Once I enter that formula, all I need to do is hit enter on my keyboard, and it appears, the math is done for us in Excel, and it appears as a decimal. But as we said before, we want this to be shown as a percentage. So the default is always to just show it as a decimal numeric format. But if you want to change it to a percentage, what you can do is use the ABC123 button that's on our home menu. So I'm going to tap on that, ABC123, and I'm going to select percentage from the menu that's given to us. So down at the bottom, percentage, and it immediately turns the data into 80% instead of 0.8. Okay. So one more time, I'm going to do that formula. And then after I do it one more time, I'm just going to show you how to copy and paste it down to all of the other customers. So one more time, equals, I'm going to tap on my current amount in cell C4. I'm going to use the backslash to indicate that I want to divide, and I want to divide it by the total receivable balance in cell B4. Once I enter my formula, I hit enter on my keyboard, and it again appears just as a decimal number. I want to change the format, so I'm going to tap on ABC123, and I'm going to tap on percentage. So that is the way that we can include the formula. And then another thing that we went over with in a previous video where we were doing a little bit of copying and pasting, I'm going to do it again here just to kind of reiterate that feature of Excel. So I currently am tapped on cell F4. And if I double tap on it, it brings up this menu. And I want to be able to copy this formula. And then I'm going to highlight all of the cells that I want that formula to be pasted into. So I tapped on cell F5 and then dragged it all the way down to cell F13 so that I'm covering all of the customers. Once I do that, I tap paste, and you can see that then the formula is automatically populated in each of those cells that I had highlighted. One thing to notice is what Excel does is sort of it follows you down in your table of data. So instead of using cells C4 and B4, we go down and it follows us to the next row down. So it uses cell C5 and B5, then C6 and B6, then C7, B7. So it follows the rows all the way down when we copy and paste in that way. So that's kind of the way that Excel allows us to use the formula, but have it be pertaining to a different row of data so that we can use it for each individual customer.